Happy Tuesday, everyone. Hope your June has been off to a great start. Always fun to connect with the local community on cool new technologies. I know we've done a lot of webinars around Copilot. I know that's one of a few of the fresh new technologies that Microsoft has released in the last 6 months. Another one is what we'll be talking about today around the Intune Suite and how to go and look at your broader endpoint management estate to see where there's potentially value to streamlining to a single platform and how that can even help with other initiatives like security, et cetera, which we'll talk about at the outset of the presentation today. For those of you that are new to concurrency in our webinars, a little bit about myself. I've been a Microsoft consultant for over 20 years now. I'm on the board of the Minnesota Microsoft 365 user group. I'm married, have 3 kids. I work as a solutions architect on our modern workplace team here at Concurrency, so that oversees everything from cloud, identity, collab, security compliance, and endpoint management, and aligns a lot of that to those zero trust pillars. And then when I'm not involved with technology from an IT perspective, I am involved with technology from a music perspective. I travel, DJ, as well as I love taking those together, finding new foods, and blogging about those as well. You can reach out, find me on the web through email, through my blog at memphistech.net, or you can follow me on LinkedIn as well if you have any questions after this presentation. So let's talk a little bit about the endpoint management landscape from Microsoft perspective. Microsoft's been in the endpoint management in that space ever since the early 2000s with SMS and with SCCM, and taking that story to the cloud with Intune as it has evolved since the early 2010s. Now taking a look at what its capabilities are in 2024, it has become one of the default industry leaders when it comes to endpoint management. And to be able to take and leverage that capability and be able to add on other capabilities to eliminate other pieces of software or vendors within that stack is one of the biggest values of the Intune Suite. And some of the core areas that really it touches on, it looks at access for your mobile devices. It looks at being able to enhance metrics, which Microsoft has made a substantial investment in over the last years in improving some of the reporting capabilities in Intune to be almost on par with what you might be familiar with SCCM. Being able to take your PKI and eliminate on-premises certificate authorities, move those into the cloud, as well as being able to support third-party applications. And really at its core, a lot of these components that Microsoft has invested into Intune have really been to continue to enhance that security story. First and foremost, if you were to ask someone at Microsoft, they're a security company and an AI company here in 2024. And so the Intune Suite really does build on top of that with bringing more security enhancements to that whole suite. And so as we look at the agenda for the next hour, I do want to highlight those core areas where the improvements in application security to secure access to resources, device operations and support are very much rooted in security. And then as we move forward and we take a look at what licensing looks like and what some of the tooling capabilities are in comparison to what we've seen in other customers' environments, you'll see a little bit of that peppered throughout the presentation to be thinking about what are other tool sets that I'm using in my environment today that the Intune Suite can support. And then at the end, take a look at what are some next steps to be able to help you take that realization, look to see how Intune Suite can be a good fit for your organization. So as we talk about Microsoft's Endpoint Story, it really does encapsulate a lot of these different pillars at its core. It really focuses on applications, identities, and devices, but in doing so provides a wealth of capabilities from self-service capabilities through the company portal, through being able to support remote and hybrid workers, through a cloud-based management tool. It has rich reporting data, and then provides additional integration capabilities to tools to be able to help you do more in managing your devices, such as autopilot in computer management, supporting security through Defender for Endpoint, new capabilities in patching and staying current through AutoPatch, having endpoint analytics and rich data around your device, and all of that being rooted in that Microsoft 365 feature set to be able to provide those capabilities. And then to add on the capabilities of the Intune suite, really are going to be around these 6 core areas around enhanced analytics, around being able to have elevated privilege management, being able to have tunnel capabilities for mobile devices, remote help, and then management for specialized devices, and being able to all provide that zero trust capability when it comes to your endpoint security and your access as well. And being able to take that story to your employees or students, anyone that is in your organization that you are working with, you need to collaborate and you need to be able to securely provide access to your environment and secure those access with those resources. Not only does Intune provide a lot of that capability, but layering on the Intune suite takes it to that next level. And it provides that peace of mind for administrators to be able to protect your organization data, to be able to provide secure managed user access, and to continue that story of support no matter where users work securely. And so as we take a further look and we dig down into what's all in that Microsoft endpoint management story here in 2024, we can see how it's kind of segmented into a couple of different areas where the Intune admin capabilities, these are capabilities that you find natively with Intune, whether you purchase Intune Plan 1, whether you have Microsoft 365, whether you have the EMS add-on, those are going to be some of your core capabilities, along with being able to have Windows Autopilot for computer deployment management. Then where we look at some of the integrations, being able to leverage a secure identity story and the connection into Intra allows us to leverage those user IDs and those devices that are enrolled through Intra and to be able to continue that device management story through Windows Autopilot, as well as being able to leverage groups to roll out applications, to roll out policies, and be able to do that either through statically assigned groups or groups that are dynamically created. And then as we start to see some of the legacy device management, a lot of the capabilities that we're seeing inside of the Intune Suite and other investments with Microsoft is just to continue to sunset that being able to be dependent on that on-premises configuration management and to have a lot of that capability in the cloud today, and to be able to leverage other integrations such as monitoring through Azure Monitor. If you have a third-party mobile device defense tool sets, those are capable as well. And as of this year, one of the most exciting investments by Microsoft in Copilot is taking that Copilot story and the security aspect of it to the next level and being able to have a lot of that automation. So a lot of excitement area there. For the remainder of our time, though, we're going to dig into really what's inside this Intune suite and what are some of those capabilities, especially from a licensing perspective. That's usually one of the first conversations we're having with customers around the endpoint management real estate within their organization is how many different vendors are there? When are their contracts? When does those contracts elapse? In a lot of cases, they don't end at the same time. There's not a lot of overlap. So being very strategic in how we look at the implementation of these tools is very important. And looking at and educating around that Intune landscape is important as well. So that way our customers, they know what's in that native Intune management capability that they have today. If they needed to add on certain capabilities to be able to have some of these ad hoc as they're looking to ramp up into that full suite capability, it is easy to add on, whether it be the Intune Remote Help, which is a supplement for a number of the remote access tool sets, being able to give your subset of users the ability to just in time elevate access into applications, having some rich reporting capabilities, which we'll go through and do a demo of later. We'll go through and do a demo of application management, as well as the cloud PKI, and be able to give you a look and feel of how that works with the Intune Suite license inside of your tenant. So keep these in mind as you're thinking about what might be in your organization today, where there might be opportunities to make some enhancements within each of these areas. So as we continue to look at those three core pillars that we talked about as we started the conversation, this first pillar is really improvements in application security. And Microsoft realized that the third-party patching story really was a big hurdle in where there are security risks in endpoints. And in Microsoft's digital defense report, where they were able to see that 78% of devices had applications that were unpatched 9 months after a critical vulnerability, was something that really fueled a lot of the conversation internally within Microsoft to ensuring that applications, as they are installed on a device, are constantly being kept up to date to avoid any potential risk or any potential entry point from a bad actor. And that is a key vulnerability, making a lot of organizations susceptible to cyber attacks. And so at its core, Microsoft has had some capability through the Microsoft Store to deploy applications. That's evolved to now the new Wingate story and is really foundational in what is fueling a lot of the enterprise app management capabilities and the app catalog that Microsoft is rolling out into as part of the Intune Suite. And at the very bottom, as you can see here, there's a couple of applications that if you're using them in your environment, you might have some familiarity with these capabilities in understanding that, hey, I did need a third-party tool, but now maybe I can look at something that is built into this management product that I'm using through Intune. So in looking at how the functionality works, traditionally, you would go through into Intune and you would add it as an app. In this case, it's referred to the store app, or it's referred to the new store. And if you look through there, there's a lot of Microsoft native applications that you could see through the store app. Now, with the introduction of the enterprise app catalog, even as a release back in November, they were supporting 100 of the core organization or core applications through key organizations that are installing apps on endpoints today. Now that we are well into 6 months after it has been rolled out, there's over 500 applications. Microsoft's adding 100 a month. In talking to some of the Microsoft team, the question was asked, hey, we could light up all the applications that are currently inside of our real estate that we've seen that have been packaged through things like Intune WIM? And the answer was yes. But as part of doing that, it's ensuring that these applications meet a lot of those secure deployment standards. So Microsoft is working with a lot of these vendors to go through and ensure that they are meeting their deployment standards. So as you're going through and you're selecting an application, it's automatically populating the right install commands, the right uninstall commands, so that you as an IT team know that if I'm installing this application, if I'm rolling out an enterprise application, Microsoft's going to take care of updating those bits behind the scenes. I don't have to go and repackage applications. And as part of doing this, as you're going through, and traditionally where supersedence or the ability to install an updated application was only available for Win32 apps, that's now something that is native to these new enterprise applications that you can choose through a very easy to select list to deploy to your endpoints. And it consolidates that application process, as you can see in some cases where if you've gone through and you're looking at updates for Win32 apps in the app catalog, you can see where Microsoft has provided you some visibility into seeing when those particular applications have been superseded by a new version. And then to take that story a step further and looking at how else can we enhance application security on our endpoints, a lot of that does really boil down to what applications users may be overprivileged to access and what applications in your environment potentially you're giving your end users full administrative access to their machines when they just need to access one application. They need to elevate a couple of applications. And by giving them full access, that significantly increases their attack vector and leaves a risk on those machines where if we could just give them standard user access and they just in time elevate it, it gives them a more secure working environment. So as you can see here, there's a couple of other applications. So you've got Beyond Trust and CyberArk. Those are two of the biggest competitors that have been in this space for a very long time that are in providing privileged endpoint management within Windows environments. And as we can see here from the rollout of the technology, it is very similar to other tools. It does require an agent to run on the machine. It's labeled as the EPM agent. Once that has been deployed and pushed out, you'll be able to see that on your endpoints. So then from there, you can actually leverage additional tools to determine what apps on your users' workstations that they are elevating will need to understand what their file hash is, being able to take that file hash and being able to use the Microsoft PowerShell module. We can then take that information and put it into a policy so that way as users are going through and they are elevating that application on their device, it is no longer having to have them add in additional information. You'll be able to see that by natively, you'll have administrator application access to an app versus traditionally, like with something in this case, we use command line, for example, it required you to provide additional administrative credentials for being able to elevate. So at this point, I want to make this a little interactive. Let's make this a little fun. Let's go and take a look at some of this in a actual working environment. So bear with me for just a second while I switch over to another window because I want to take you into a demo PC that I have here. I want to be able to kind of show you what it looks like from the application catalog perspective first, and then we'll take a look at the privileged elevation through Intune as well. So as you can see here, I have my application catalog. You can see I've got a number of apps from traditional MSI to Win32 apps. And down here, I have the latest. I have a couple of applications in here that are the store apps. So let's go in here and take a look. I want to show you the vast number of applications that today exist inside the enterprise application catalog. So a number of vendors across the board. If I was a Citrix environment, I could deploy the workspace app without having to package it and to be able to go through and test it, knowing that peace of mind that Microsoft has gone through and provided some of those capabilities. If I wanted to deploy Chrome for Business, Microsoft has already gone through and prepackaged that. They've even actually added a lot of additional capabilities inside of Intune to manage that through the settings catalog. So everything is native into Intune for being able to manage some of those tools. They also have a number of Microsoft applications as well to be able to deploy. If I wanted to deploy the Azure CLI, I can do that, which we'll do here in just a second. But I just wanted to kind of quickly at a glance give you visibility into the breadth of all the applications that Microsoft is working with and the organizations that Microsoft is ensuring that are packaging and deploying these applications to both organizations' best practices. So just to show you, we did select this Azure CLI package. As you can see here, it pre-populates a lot of the information. And then if I were to go into next, you can see that it automatically populates the install and uninstall command. It also provides you some requirements. It will pre-build out some detection rules, and this is typically one of the most challenging areas when it comes to application deployment and understanding what versions are installed is around looking at some of the detection rules. Microsoft pre-populates those to make this process as seamless as and easy as possible. So once I go ahead and application, it actually will populate it here, and it's actually bringing that content into your tenant and making that available. So that's something that will take a little bit of time to bake in. So then while we're doing that, I wanted to show you in real world access what it looks like to elevate an application in a Windows 11 environment. I've got this system information. It's a native Microsoft application, but I was able to go in and make an adjustment to the rules policy around elevating access to be able to make it where it should be able to just allow me to click in through with some business justification and launch the application. To be able to show it in comparison, you'll be able to notice that other applications like command prompts, etc., they'll ask that same information. And of course, being a live demo, my policy is not updated or refreshed, but I could put in checking RAM. And as you were able to just see, the capabilities to elevate were natively built into the right-click tools. So in the case where I've added in a policy, I can see that I can give the users the ability to elevate that capability, and then they're right into the applications. And then from a rule set perspective, Microsoft has put that into the endpoint management section of the Intune portal. I then have my deployment policies and rules. I typically go to deploy the policy to all workstations. So then that way I've got that capability to elevate through rules. But then the rules themselves, those are the ones that are going to be custom managed. In a lot of cases, if you have different business units, different departments within your organization, and you know that one particular team has to elevate an application, you can go in there and you can edit that capability where if a user has to confirm the elevation, it can do that, or you can have it to where they have to provide some level of business justification and be able to allow that process to run elevated or require a rule to run. So in this case, for these applications that I've listed, I want to require a rule to run for that capability. Maybe there is one that I want to allow a team to run automatically, and I don't want to necessarily have to ask them for any business justification. I can come in here and change that to automatic and allow that child process to run. So very easy to manage the rule sets, as we looked at before, being able to understand what those specific file hashes are, and very important to being able to allow those users to elevate those applications. So let's move on and let's continue our story here around the improvements to secure access to resources. So there's been two core pieces of technology that Microsoft has introduced to be able to support not only access and secure access on mobile devices, but also secure access into managing your endpoints as well as being able to secure your devices through things like a cloud PKI. And looking at traditional PKI, it's very complex. The actual deployment and managing of the certificate of authority, in a lot of cases, it's painful and it's daunting. There's a lot of different things that you have to take into consideration around deploying the infrastructure, to managing certificates, to templates, renewals, deploying through GPOs, having cloud-based access through network policy services, managing CRLs and URLs, and device connectivity. So there's quite a lot that goes into managing a PKI infrastructure, not to mention if you're looking for resiliency, in a lot of cases, those are becoming 2 and 3 tier with servers in a multitude of different locations. And this is just to give you an example of what a 2-tier PKI solution looks like in a large organization and how many different pieces of technology are involved with that, different network paths, being able to have connectivity to Active Directory, having a hardware security module for an offline route, and being able to provide service and support capabilities for OSs like operating systems like Mac OS X and Windows and Linux. So they can become rather complex, and a lot of organizations do really rely on them for things like enterprise wireless, for access to applications, etc. So Microsoft's recognized that. They've heard the pain from a lot of their customers in being able to provide a more simplified solution. They've rolled out what's considered their first version of Cloud PKI, went GA back in March of this year. And to be able to set that up is very easy and straightforward. From being able to set up a root and issuing CA, being able to take that certificate and deploy it to your devices, is become very simple. The only thing to call out for the Cloud PKI within the first version is that it does support only user and device certificates, which natively they're easy when you're looking to support Wi-Fi profiles, VPN profiles, etc. Microsoft's actively working to support SSL, where I can take a CSR and upload it and be able to get a certificate. Being able to take that further into code signing and SMIME and being able to support applications. But for a lot of native uses where I have user devices that are Intune enrolled, I need to provide them the capability to connect securely. And if I'm a smaller organization, I understand there's a lot of different complexities to a PKI that I may not want to manage. I can use one that's cloud first and cloud native. So usually within 5-10 minutes, it's really that easy to go through and set up a cloud PKI and be able to have that integration. Just wanted to show as a comparison to like how the usual third-party PKIs work when you're looking at third-party tools like an Intrust, and how there's still a number of integration points that have to occur, not only with the provider back to the devices, but also to SCEP profiles, etc. If as we look at how cloud PKI works and how that connects into the Microsoft world, what happens is from the Intune portal, I'm actually deploying cloud PKI services. Those typically will live on Azure. And then from an integration perspective into Intune, I am creating a SCEP profile that is deployed down to the machine. And then as that machine checks in, it will request the certificate from the SCEP service. That SCEP service will then validate it with the cloud PKI service. It will obtain a certificate, and then it will deliver it back to the machine. So as long as you have a device that is Intune enrolled, it will provide you that capability. That's something that Microsoft is actively looking at. What is that future of being able to continue to provide that cloud PKI connectivity without needing to have an Intune enrolled device? At this point in time, for devices that are Intune enrolled, those are the only ones that Microsoft supports for being able to request those certificates. As I mentioned before, configuration is a breeze. Setting up the issuer and the root CAs, being able to create your 3 different profiles of your root and issuing certificates, which Microsoft gives you as you are setting those up, taking those and creating a SCEP profile, pushing that down to a machine, and then being able to have that deployment capability just through Intune natively within a matter of minutes. And then in validating, you can see if you were to open up one of those certificates, you can see that that is hosted within Microsoft's PKI infrastructure. And you can see here that it obtained that issuer name from the CA. So being able to set that up, being able to support a multitude of different extended usages. For this particular profile, I just did client authentication. Microsoft does support extended key usage across a number of uses. The only thing it doesn't support from a security perspective is a wildcard. You can't use a wildcard extended usage. Microsoft wants to ensure that the security is targeted for those usages that you want to be able to add it. If you did need to add extended usages, that's where you would then go up and create other enrollments, SCEP certificate profiles, and configure potentially other issuing extended usages within your root as well as your issuer as you're thinking through and planning on those deployments. And revocation is easy as well. One thing that I would like to call out as part of the revocation is if you have devices that are Intune enrolled, and those devices are deprovisioned, they're removed, you remove them from the environment, what's going to happen is it's automatically going to go and revoke that as well. So you don't have to worry about decommissioning and retiring devices and needing to go and revoke certificates. It's going to do that for you automatically as well. So secure access through Cloud PKI, as well as secure access through Microsoft Tunnel, and being able to provide a VPN gateway solution to on resources. And Microsoft is really putting a lot into the story, not only within Intune, but also within their whole interest story as well. If you've heard anything about their private gateway, as well as their public connectivity within Intra, those leverage a lot of the same capabilities to be able to provide your mobile devices access to the core internal network without necessarily having a traditional VPN client deployed to those devices as well. And a lot of that capability, if you are a Defender customer today, it's built into the tool. So as long as you have that tool set deployed, you're using Defender on all of your mobile devices to be able to protect it, you have that tunnel capability built in as well. And as we talk with customers and ask, what are some of the usages and why are your mobile devices connecting in through VPN? A lot of it really does come back to that accessibility. And from an ease perspective, where using Microsoft Tunnel is very simple to set up with easy maintenance, but it also has that full MDM support as well. And in looking at how that infrastructure works, typically from a device perspective, I do have a management gateway installed on premise. That management gateway connects back to Intune by way of a management agent. And then as a user deploys the tunnel client to the devices along with a VPN configuration policy, that particular device will pick up that configuration. It then will authenticate into Intra. And then once it has gone through and provide that authentication, that connection, all that's still tunneled through Intune. And being able to navigate through those user resources that are internal are allowed by way of connecting through that gateway. So then I'm not traditionally trying to come in through a load balancer or a firewall. I'm able to do that through that agent that lives within that Microsoft environment. And then I can connect into different resources internally. I can get into my corporate network as necessary. And all of that really just leverages from a firewall perspective, 443 and 22, which are very common ports for remote connectivity, inbound, as well as 80 and 443 outbound. So you're not having to open up a number of different ports to allow that connectivity into that Microsoft tunnel gateway. So architecture-wise, very straightforward. From a different list of different components that you typically would need within the environment. As long as you're using M365, you usually have Intune and Intra. Having a Linux server to be able to run a Docker container that actually powers tunnel is important. Being able to configure that management agent on the tunnel gateway and being able to have that authentication plugin lives on there as well. And then configuring that gateway, you're provided with a TLS certificate. You have that firewall connectivity to allow connection into that tunnel gateway. And then that public IP address from a tunnel gateway perspective is all plugged into that tunnel configuration as well to be able to access your corporate network from a public resource. And then that device will come through and tunnel through it as well by way of that Defender agent on their devices. And then just a couple areas to touch on from a high level perspective. It is a dual homed machine that runs on. You can run that in either Azure or over ExpressRoute. You must have some ports opened up to that gateway. And then from a configuration perspective, there's a couple of steps to be able to configure it for proxy support, to do an install via Docker. And then from a agent management perspective, there are several commands that you can go into to crack into some of that configuration to provide connectivity as well. And then outside of just having that tunnel gateway connected in through your firewall, from a deployment perspective, you're really just looking at a app configuration policy for Defender, the app configuration policy for Edge, as well as app protection policies to be able to force it to run in a container for both iOS and Android. You must have that Defender installed, as well as Edge and the company portal to be able to provide that capability. In a lot of cases, if these are mobile devices that are managed by your organization, these are going to be configuration vectors that you already have within your environment and are ready to deploy once you have that tunnel gateway installed. So from a connectivity perspective, what does that experience look like? I don't have a working lab to show you, but I wanted to kind of walk through it through a number of screenshots here because it is very straightforward from that end user experience. So if we look at the Defender app and we have deployed the configuration policies through Intune, and we will then see tunnel light up within the actual application itself. We can then go into that tunnel component of the Defender application, and then we can on demand turn on and turn off the VPN connectivity. From there, let's say that I did connect into the tunnel and I wanted to go in through Edge to access a internal application. That's where I can then go and see within Microsoft Edge, it's going to be enlightened enough to let me know that it is connected to tunnel. So then if I were to go hit an internal only resource, it allows me to access that SaaS-based application very effortlessly by way of proxying or connecting in through that Microsoft tunnel. And it actually is very native to being able to support boundaries between different profiles. So if I am on a work or school device and I have my end users enroll and I know that that device is personal, but then they also have enrolled it for work purposes, the end user can switch from that work profile in apps like Edge over to their personal. And then there'll be a notification in Edge that says, hey, you've turned off tunnel. And if I try to access that resource from a personal profile, I'm not able to do so. But then I can easily switch in applications like Edge and then connect right back into my corporate resources that are located on premise that I'm allowing my mobile users to access by way of that Microsoft tunnel. So we talked about accessibility. We talked about accessibility through securing access to resources through VPN and through our wireless through Cloud PKI. We talked about connectivity and secure connectivity for our mobile devices through the the Microsoft tunnel capabilities. That's where we would then go now. Maybe let's see how, from an IT perspective, I have improvements in being able to update and manage that operations and support. And that's where we'd have tools like remote help. Microsoft has built remote help to being able to leverage those native tools, the quick assist tools, as well as their remote help tools to be able to provide secure access. A number of customers that we've worked with have tools like Beyond Trust and TeamViewer, Manage Engine's another one. There are a number of different tool sets within the end user and endpoint management in a state that can provide some of that capabilities. From a Microsoft capability perspective, they do support all of the operating systems from Windows 10 all the way up through Mac. Inside the tenant configuration, it's pretty easy to turn on that capability. And then by way of deploying the remote help app, which we can do through enterprise application management very easily, we can then now go through and connect a remote assistance session to a device. And then by way of going into the remote help section of the tenant admin section, we are able to see where there's active and inactive connections. I can look at where those connections have been natively as well. And then being able to see that has been enabled inside of remote help. Typically, that next step is assigning your help desk users that operator role and giving the users a license, giving them that remote help license. At that point, you're ready to start supporting your end users as easily as you would go into Intune and natively make configuration changes. So by deploying that remote help app, by assigning that role, your users are then able to, once they're licensed, your admin team is then able to go through and connect into those end users environments. So from the perspective of where can I access those devices unattendedly through attended, currently right now Microsoft supports unattended only through Android. So if I have a number of kiosk devices or frontline worker devices, and I need to be able to support them very easily, then remote help can provide that capability. From supporting my end users that are either Mac or Windows, that's where you would then start an attended session through the Intune portal. The end user, by way of deploying that remote help application to them, will receive a toast notification that you're looking to make the connection to their device. If not, there'll be an error message, or if you're connecting to a non-compliant device, you'll get a warning banner. So just to walk through that experience real quick, this is where if I've sent a push notification to that machine saying that I want to initiate a remote support session. Essentially, this is what I would see as an administrator. I am looking to connect to that machine, and then from the end user perspective, they would see that it's looking for the connection. And then once you have made that connection to the machine, then that end user can click to allow full control or different levels of accessibility to the machine. Once they've allowed you access, then there's a number of different features and functionality that I can leverage as an IT admin to manage that machine, such as being able to elevate resources in a multi-monitor scenario. I can select different monitors. If I wanted to walk an end user through troubleshooting without needing to take full elevated control, I can leverage things like a laser pointer and pen. If I wanted to chat with that end user, I can do that as well. And I can actually elevate and do a reboot or open task manager on that end user screen as well. So remote help capabilities being native into Intune is a great capability to be able to help support those end users within one platform and one tool set. And then finally, to kind of round out some of those capabilities, we have advanced endpoint analytics. This is where Microsoft made a pretty significant advancement in essentially rewriting their whole reporting backend in Intune in 2023. And in 2024, they rolled out this capability, being able to essentially run commands on demand from my Intune portal to be able to query a device, to be able to pull some real-time information about specific areas on those devices, and being able to look at some of the different enhanced reporting capabilities that has fueled that as well. So if I have the advanced analytics, I can then be able to pull additional information in real time about any anomalies, being able to pull real time around any enhanced device timeline, battery health if I'm on a laptop, or be able to have additional device query as well, which I think is where you'll see a lot of really powerful capabilities from some of that in-time capabilities on the device. So let's take a quick pause here. Let's switch back over to our live demo environment to be able to walk through some of that capability. I'm going to show you first. Let's take a look at some of that cloud PKI infrastructure and revisit where I made a note on how, if a user's device or a 5D provisioner or retired a device, I can then see that cloud PKI is going to connect with Intune to automatically revoke that device. So in this scenario, this is where I had re-provisioned one of my Windows 365 PCs, and as doing so, Intune recognized that that device is no longer being managed in the environment and revoked that certificate for it as well, which makes it really easy for device endpoint management by way of this issuer or the issuing certificate authority. And in this case, you can see when I set this one up, it leveraged a number of different extended key usages. Microsoft, in each of these cloud PKIs, they have a hardware-based HSM for their CAs. And so anytime that a new customer-facing CM is issued, this is essentially the backend that's hardware security managed for those environments. So as you can see here, here's all my CRL endpoints, my CA URI, and then as I'm going in and setting up a new certificate profile for my devices, I'm essentially just copying this URI with the denotator here for the Cloud PKI FDN into that policy as well. So Microsoft's making it really easy to just do copy and paste to be able to take those over to configuration profile and to be able to make it easy to issue the certificates by way of these profiles. So as you can see here, here's my issuing profile. And then if I were to come over to here, here is my enrollment profile as well, where I've gone in and I've dropped in the SCEP URL, and I had already pre-uploaded the actual issuing and root certificates. So let's say I wanted to take a look at some of the additional reporting on my devices. If I were to come over here and take a look at the endpoint analytics to be able to look at my battery health, this is something from a battery health perspective. This is native within the actual Intune Suite capabilities, taking and extending endpoint analytics to that step further. I can then look at some of the different performances to be able to look at, what is going on with my different laptop models. I can see what my max capacity is and what my estimated runtime is as well. All those are native capabilities that are built into there. One thing it also adds is a enhanced device timeline. So if I were to go over and take a look at my device itself, I can come into Windows, and if I were to look at one of my Windows devices here, I could then take a look at a couple of different components here. I could take a look at my device configuration. I could then look at some of my device diagnosis, and I can see if there's anything that's been requested. But really, I think one of the key areas that is going to provide some of that most value to doing troubleshooting and being able to look specifically on devices is really that real-time accessibility into some of these different device queries. So let's take an example. Maybe I wanted to look and see what particular certificates were installed real-time on a device. I could easily take that information and pull down some high-level details around the common name, the serial number, the issuer, and then the strength. And then if I hit run, what it's going to do is it's going to real time go back and query that device and to be able to provide me that detail. And usually what that usually comes back in less than 15 seconds for that real time query. So as you can see here, the machine has had a number of different certificates that are enrolled on it. But as I can see here, I can then start to look at those and let's say maybe I realized that maybe I wanted to see when that particular certificate is going to expire. I could look at the to date and add that in there as well. A lot of this is additional information that Microsoft uses too to be able to provide some of the certificate reports that live in the platform like Defender as well. So if I wanted to then use this as a tool to query my devices to see where I have certificates that are expiring, I could do that on demand and be able to easily export that through KQL as well. And then finally, being able to go through and manage my devices. If I were to go through and connect into to be able to provide remote support, I can easily do that right here inside of the Intune portal by being able to initiate a remote assistance session. That will go through and launch a remote help window on my machine and go through and start to initiate another one on another machine as well. So all that is native into Intune by looking at certificate management, advanced reporting, not needing to have a myriad of different platforms to be able to provide those capabilities is where there's a lot of value within that Intune suite. And so as we look to round out our conversation today, the question that we ask is, how can we go further? How can we do more within our endpoint environments? What can we do to enhance some of those capabilities, to be able to start to think of all of the different types of tooling that we might have within our enterprise environments today, from enterprise application management, endpoint privilege management, cloud PKI, cloud Microsoft Tunnel, or remote access for devices, remote help, and endpoint analytics. These are a couple of examples of where we've seen in customer environments and some of the investment that they're paying based on where we would see as such as potentially 1,000 devices. These are where some of those costs might come into play. And so what if you could take each of those and streamline them into a single tool set? That's where we want to definitely engage with you further to look at and help you understand where those correlations are to Microsoft tools. Maybe in some cases, as we sit down and as Concurrency is offering that free IT vendor assessment, maybe that's where we're looking at other tools in the environment too, such as what if there's third-party antiviruses? What if there's some of those third-party management tools? What are we doing for messaging security? We'll provide you an output that shows what the current vendors is. We work with you to understand what some of those licenses and costs are, which that's typically the most time consuming part of doing the vendor assessment, is working with you to pull together all those prices and those bills and then correlate those into what Microsoft tool might be there, and then be able to provide you a breakdown of what are those net new Microsoft licensing costs that would be in your environment, and where could you then start to look at some of those cost savings from your third-party tools as well. So we'd love to connect with you. Inside the chat, you'll see the survey link. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to understand, what you thought of this presentation today. If there is an opportunity to connect with you to not only talk more about the Intune Suite, but also to help you in guiding you down that path with a free IT vendor assessment as well. So, wanted to thank you all for being here today. If there's any questions that you have, feel free to drop them in the chat. If there's any questions that you have around the different toolings within the Intune Suite, how some of those capabilities work, definitely would love to connect with you more. Or feel free to fill out that survey, and we'll reach out for you further as well. And with that, we'd love to thank you once again and hope to connect with you again soon in another one of our awesome webinars. So thanks a lot.